Hello and welcome to Every Horror Movie on Netflix, the show where we watch, review, and discuss every horror movie on Netflix. Back again, it's me, Chris, and I'm here again with Patrick.
Greetings.
And Steven.
Sup?
And I'm feeling great right now. I was not feeling great before I came over here. The dead has come back to life.
You got some coffee?
I got some coffee. Patrick made me some French press, some French roast.
You're welcome.
I don't know anything about coffee. I just started drinking coffee.
Dude, I don't know shit about
Today?
coffee.
This is your first time drinking coffee?
No, but like today is the first day I've like drinking coffee twice just because I felt like drinking coffee.
Yeah, I was shocked when you texted me and said, put on a pot of Joe. I was like, wow, Chris is drinking coffee twice today.
He's more of a puppy monkey baby sort of guy.
Yeah, puppy monkey baby for sure. Yeah.
I had to text someone for technical support on how to use the French press at my house because it's not my French press.
And what did she say? How'd you tell you to make the Joe?
Why did you assume it was a she?
How did he tell you how to make the Joe?
She said put a couple of tablespoons of coffee grounds in the bottom of the thing, pour some boiling water in, and let it sit for a few minutes.
Push
hold
Joe
on.
3-3.
You know I drink coffee. I was right here the whole time.
Yes.
You didn't ask me?
No, this was before you got here.
Oh, okay.
Although I did end up consulting you on... What did I consult you on?
And how much water to put in.
Oh, that's right. Yes. Oh, yes. And Steven told me how much water to put in it. He was like, how much did you put in there? I was like, a couple tablespoons. He was like, put in some more. Chris can't handle that much caffeine.
I
nervous drank 2 cups this morning, and I felt like I just like smoked a bag of meth.
Is there any coffee left?
Yeah.
Okay, well, maybe at the break I'll have a cup of Joe.
Actually, let's I need to get topped off.
Can I warm you up, hon?
I'm going to go top myself off. We'll be right back. All right, yeah, coffee's fantastic. Thank you.
Oh, you are so welcome. Would it be characterized as damn fine coffee?
It is damn fine coffee.
Good.
Yeah, I did hard time today. That's why I'm so tired. I was working the county fair.
What'd you do?
I thought you were going to say county jail.
I was working a political party tent at the county fair. I'm not going to say which one, but you can take a guess. And you think you see?
Yeah, bro, MAGA.
You think you see some monsters on Netflix? Let me tell you, see some monsters at the county fair. Imagine Gerald
in the fun house. Be nice.
Imagine Gerald, a monstrosity of a man, lumbering, and he's wearing a Dale Earnhardt Jr. T-shirt.
Oof.
And a MAGA hat.
Oof.
That's
Wait, were there
see.
actually people with MAGA hats?
Oh yeah.
What?
Holy shit!
It's a county fair.
I've never seen one in the wild.
It's not the fucking Ann Arbor Maker Fair, man.
It's not Dipsy, bro.
It's not Dipsy.
These references are all highly relevant to our national and international audience.
Yeah, well, speaking of an international audience.
Right.
Yeah, we should probably dig into... we asked you guys last episode, because, we discussed The Perfection. It was a contentious discussion. Obviously, there were a lot of different opinions on that movie, even just in our little circle. And so we said, hey, what do you all think? And
huge response.
And you guys chimed in. Thank you so much. So we want to read a couple of responses on the show here. And the responses themselves were all over the place, too. Different opinions on the movie. So I'm going to read 3 here very quickly. The first one, I'm going to start with the first one because she agrees with me.
Okay.
Listener Susan says, I agree with Patrick about all the assumptions Chris and Steven are making. The lesbian relationship, I didn't see it at all like you two. When the movie first started, I thought Charlotte was jealous, and I saw it as a seduction to get the other girl because the other girl seemed really attracted to Charlotte from the start. So Charlotte seduces her in order to ruin her career by getting her on the bus, drugging her, and getting her to cut off her hand. The first rewind reveal was not a surprise at all and made the second reveal so shocking and elating. That's my view, a female perspective. I love the two having their romantic relationship as women, empowered by love, especially Charlotte's love. There's one take.
We had some takes from people who did not like the movie, but not necessarily for the same reasons.
Yeah.
So that we called out.
Listener Margie says, since you asked for women to chime in, here to say I agree with Chris and Steven. As a woman and a survivor, I felt this movie crassly used child sexual abuse without dealing with its fallout in any sort of nuanced or sensitive way. Also, there is totally a stereotype of lesbians being abused by men as children, which leads to thinking that they can be fixed by the right man, which is not to say you can't have a lesbian relationship in a movie that also deals with child molestation, but yeah, this movie did not mind its P's and Q's. I love rape revenge movies. I wish MFA was on Netflix. Do you guys know what MFA is?
I've heard of it. I haven't seen it
Master
yet,
of Fine Arts.
I'm curious about it.
Can I get my MFA on Netflix?
We're
We're
working on it, I guess.
We're getting there.
You know what? I love that comment because it made me realize that, like, yeah, that is totally a trope in movies that, like, abuse leads to sort of quote unquote like wayward sexual preferences.
Yeah, which we did talk about last episode.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Margie says that, and she says, this one just made me feel like it was using real trauma for cheap thrills. Anyway, love you guys, and thanks for this labor of love you all provide for us horror fans. Thank you so much, Margie.
Thank you, Margie.
And lastly, listener Carrie went scorched earth on this movie. She says, I watched this and was into it and then just lost it. What the hell did I watch? Screw it with prejudice. To me, it was a flick trying to be en film with artsy themes and provocative subject matter, but zero substance to back it up. And I say, you know what, thank you, Carrie, even though she disagreed with my take on the movie, because she referenced not one but two of our memes. She screwed it with prejudice, and she also referred to it being en film. So, you know, we're spreading memes out in the world now.
We're spreading our disease.
This is scary. I think it might be time to shut this down.
With that, I am determined to never think about The Perfection again.
You know what?
It's not hard for me. It didn't really leave much left
It's
to
been
be
a
imagined.
rough couple of weeks. Patrick and I feuded over this movie.
We did.
After the show so viciously, I almost murdered him in real life, and he probably almost murdered me.
I mean, so here's my final thought on The Perfection is I still liked it, but all the discussion that we've had about it and all the discussion I saw on Facebook as well has definitely lent me some new perspective on it, and I've reconsidered my position on the movie. I'm not going to get into that today, but I will say that I value everyone's opinion, and it's made me think about the movie in a new way.
Cool. Well, what we are going to get into today is a little Turkish horror film. We're going to Turkey today. Let's talk Turkey. This week's film is Dabbe. I think I'm pronouncing that right. Again, this is another movie where we're just complete cultural ignoramuses.
Yeah. Ignorami.
Yeah, just treading on other cultures that we do not understand and did not take the time to learn anything about.
I took a little time. I looked up Dabbe on Wikipedia to understand what that was outside of the context of the movie.
What a Herculean effort you made to understand the context of this film.
It was tough.
Wow.
My index fingers and thumbs are still sore from the typing that was required.
We're talking about a 2-hour, 15-minute, I believe.
Yes.
Something like that.
Found footage.
Epic.
Possession film. It's actually the third in a series, the Dabbe franchise. Parts 3, 5, and 6 are on Netflix. Dabbe the Possession, which we watched for this week, is the third. And yeah, this is a movie where I was watching it with, iPad in one hand, searching up things like, religious demographics of Turkey, and then reading the subtitle. I got one eye on the iPad, one eye on the screen, watching the subtitles.
Chris, you're supposed to focus on the movie.
I know. Well, I was pausing it a little bit, but just trying to understand this movie some more. And you know what? This is a movie that I should love. I should fucking love this movie.
Why?
Because it's got all the things I like. We've got like a 1920 London-esque badass exorcist coming in to solve an exorcism. We have some strange rituals, which may be more familiar to a Turkish audience than they are to me. But it's always fun to see a character like Jay.
Love it. Always love hearing that.
Approaching an exorcism and set, I like all the little ritual that's involved in exorcism, especially when it's like odd ritual I haven't seen before.
Well, yeah, it's interesting to see a different culture's take on the exorcism trope. But there's a but in your statement.
And we have can't think straight, too much coffee. We have a little bit of X-Files going on. We have a skeptic and a believer.
Oh, yeah.
And, one is approaching something with a scientific viewpoint. Someone is approaching it from the mystical
And there's a little bit of sexual tension between them too.
We've got twists. We've got twists out the ass. We've got I love a twist. I love a good twist.
You sound like Joe Bop right now. Yeah. We got twist foo. We got ass foo.
And we got, a character who is like, oh yeah, by the way, I'm married to a djinn. Just great stuff. Great stuff. Lots to like in this movie. The format, though, I thought was obnoxious.
Okay, I was waiting for that but. So let's set it up real quick. So we start with this prologue that sets up this Kibladir village, which I assume was important in the previous two movies.
Maybe
Perhaps.
not. I don't know.
We don't know. Something happened at Kibladir village, and now we've got this exorcist, Farouk. Am I remembering that right? Farouk Huja. Farouk Huja is his name.
Yeah, and Farouk is his name, and Ojah is
Huja is how they pronounce it in the movie. Farouk Huja is how they kept saying his name.
And Huja is a title that refers to a teacher or a learned man.
That was the sense I got.
Yes,
anyway.
So it's they're like saying like Professor so and so or Father so and so.
We'll call him Farouk.
And his area of expertise is he went to the same school Jay did. He went. His area of expertise is doing chants and banishing evil spirits.
We start by seeing him perform an exorcism on some random woman. Mm-hmm. This scene is not promising. When I watched this first exorcism scene, I was like, ooh, we're in for 2 hours and 15 minutes of this.
I liked it.
Did you?
I like the weird, so it's found footage, right? But we have these sort of like very disorienting, like in-camera effects.
Yeah.
Not in-camera effects, but like they're meant to seem as such in...
Yeah, it's meant to. There are moments where it seems like the paranormal entity is manipulating,
like affecting the videotape or something.
There's a lot of shaky video.
It's like, I hate to use the term Lynchian, but it felt like that. It reminded me of like a couple of like shots from Blue Velvet that really stuck with me, or Inland Empire, and I liked that because it made it feel like, okay, it's found footage, but like I still feel like I'm like there's energy coming from this possession like through the video that's affecting me somehow. I thought that was cool.
To me, the main thing that bothered me about that first exorcism sequence was the audio. The audio was all ADR, and there was no additional Foley. Like, it sounded really unnatural and felt really unnatural to me, especially for...
I like that, too.
Well, but for found footage, you want it to sound like it's the natural audio of the room, and it didn't sound natural at all. It didn't feel real to me. That was why that first exorcism scene bothered me.
But being in that room probably didn't feel natural either. It probably felt like all the energy was sucked out of it and is focused on this possessed person. I'm not saying like I loved it, but I thought I was kind of like jarred by it and found it really interesting. It was a very interesting creative choice that compelled me to go further into a movie that exists in a genre that I do not like at all.
Found footage?
No.
Yeah.
Possession.
Oh, possession.
Well, both, actually. It's a twofer.
We'll get into all that, but just to set up the premise. Yeah, after this prologue, which establishes two things. One, that there was some city that got like overrun by demons, or like there was weird shit going on. And then this apparent exorcism. The movie, for the most part, is from the point of view of the cameras of this university doctor who believes... What?
Ebru.
Yes. And she is a skeptic, and she is actually trying to debunk this man, Farouk, who claims to be
She's the
an
Scully.
exorcist, basically. She's the Scully, and he's kind of the Mulder, except he's actually the man who's performing the miracles and stuff. And so she says, okay, well, to test you, I'm going to pick your next client. I'm going to send you to a girl who's related to me, like my cousin, or her niece, I believe.
Is it? I was confused about the relationship between them, because at some point she's just described as Ibdra's friend.
Oh,
I heard that too, yeah.
Okay, well, actually, to be fair, all of the relationships were a little fuzzy to me. I thought that there was... No, you're right.
I think it's just her friend. It's particularly confusing because in the movie, at least in the subtitles, women frequently greet each other with the term sister, except they're not sisters. It's just a term of like friendship.
It's
and
a
I think
cultural
that
thing, but
must
I
be
think it
some
is just her
translation.
friend.
I think that must be some translation of a Turkish term.
Well, we get some
That
more.
does not mean, obviously, like a fraternal, like blood relative sister.
Yeah, we get some more information about her relationship later on in the movie. I'm trying to think if that's relevant, but it doesn't matter. Basically, there's a girl. She's possessed. Abreu's going to take Farouk to this house and say, okay, well, if you cure her, then we'll know you're for real. Otherwise, we're taking her to the real hospital.
Mm-hmm.
And from there on, you basically have a pretty straight-laced possession movie, which, Steve, you're not a fan of, the possession genre.
Not generally. It's come up on the show before. There's nothing. I mean, I think the example I brought up probably when we watched Ava's Possessions.
One of my favorites.
A film I did enjoy, which is rare for me with this sort of genre, is like it's not scary for me to see someone turn into something sort of unholy. I think a lot of the problem is like with this for me is that like even in The Exorcist, like I didn't feel like I had like a connection enough with Reagan in the film up until she got possessed to be like truly disturbed when she did become possessed.
Right.
I need like a whole movie about that character, and then
Yes.
the next hour and a half is them behaving in a way that is contradictory to everything I've seen before.
You need Event Horizon. And Sam Neill turns around at the end. He's like, where we're going, you don't need eyes to see.
Yeah.
That's what you need.
That's actually what I need tonight, regardless of possession films.
Wait, you mean you need to see Event Horizon?
Yeah,
tonight?
that's what I meant, yeah.
We're doing it.
I need Sam Neill. I've never seen it, actually. I've only seen, like, the highlight.
I only saw it
highlight
recently.
reels.
Spoilers, I guess.
I walked in for the end of it when you were watching
Oh,
this.
great film.
Yeah, there's
Oh,
nothing.
that's right, you did.
These films are,
Chris says view it.
to me, they're mostly just annoying. It's a lot of histrionics and screaming and crying and sort of like anti-religious, exclamations that mean nothing to me because I'm, an atheist. It's just
You're what? Thought you were a Buddhist.
I
I
understand.
mean, you can be both.
I understand what you're
We'll talk
saying.
about it.
I identify with that, and I'm trying to think about this sort of critically now because I don't know how much I like possession films. It was actually a question in my mind as you were talking about it. I was like, wait, do I actually like these kind of movies? And I think I do. I think it still hits me on some sort of primal level to see someone who is, perhaps innocent and pure or at most just like a normal human being all of a sudden turned into like some perverted, like screaming, like devil-voiced creature. There's something weird about that does unsettle me. It's far from the scariest thing to me, but I respond to it.
I feel like Steven's got a good point where possession movies don't commit well enough to getting to know the character before the possession.
Oh, yeah.
Which makes sense because usually the story starts when they start getting possessed, right?
We meet this character when she's possessed.
Right. I
And
mean-
the other thing is, like, it's hard to sort of, okay, so personally, it's like one of the scariest things I could imagine happening to me, being possessed by a demon. However, I wouldn't know I was possessed by a demon. Only my
might.
family members would know.
You might.
I might, maybe somewhere deep down, like, I'm conscious, just like
You're
screaming.
in the sunken place.
I'm in the sunken place and trying to get the demon out of me. But it's such a hard thing to convey in a film. Like, it doesn't lend itself well to the visual medium aside from just sort of puking and like bleeding profusely and screaming and doing spider crawls and stuff.
Yeah.
All of which are not really particularly scary to me.
And it's
All of
too
which are
much.
just a typical day in my house.
Yeah.
The typical signs of possession, like spider walking, etc., are kind of overdone.
Is that from the
Yes.
latest DSM?
What? Spider
DSM?
walk?
Spider walking. A sign of
What's
a sign of
DSM?
possession.
The diagnostic.
Oh.
Yeah.
I don't remember what it's called.
Anyway, I think it's overdone, and I think you could have a scarier possession movie if this possession was more subtle and you just see the switch flip in a performance.
Or even
Yeah.
just innovate some new way of showing that other than, the spider walking and the head turning around and whatever the fuck, like hanging all your hair like over your head and then suddenly flipping your head back. We've seen that a million times, and there has to be a new way to sort of pervert the human form and show this possession of a human body.
Because there's movies, and I can't think of any off the top of my head, but there's lots of movies like crime movies, thrillers and stuff where there's someone and it's like, oh, you're the serial killer, and now you're in serial killer mode, and it's just something they say and you get goosebumps.
I just wanted to make a Heavy Rain joke, but I won't because spoilers.
Yes. Well, that's a different
I think
case,
the
but-
embargo has been lifted on that.
No,
That was like-
no.
People have to go into Heavy Rain spoiler free
Yeah.
so that they can be fully disappointed.
Yeah, if you're listening to this and you love us, go out right now. Buy a
Heavy Rain.
PlayStation. Buy Heavy
A
Rain.
PS3 and buy Heavy Rain for like $5 or whatever it costs. Actually, the game
Go to,
itself
go to
probably-
GameSpot.com, click on the microphone at the top of the homepage,
Yeah.
type in EHMON for 20% off.
the game itself probably costs more than a PS3 at this point.
Maybe.
What?
Someone just told me they bought a PS3 for $5.
It is, economy's rough sometimes.
All right, but before we even get to the possessed girl, let me just say that I loved the performances of the actors who played Farouk and Ibru throughout this film.
Yes.
I loved the relationship between them.
I did
Even
too.
early on, they have this flirty kind of chemistry that does remind me of Mulder and Scully. Like, they just have that, like, we're not going to fuck, but we're, there's kind of this mutual appreciation, even though we have this extreme philosophical difference and we butt heads all the time. It's good. It was a good relationship. It drew me in. I was like, okay, I'm invested in this. I would watch these two just hang out for a while.
I thought they were
I'd
pretty.
watch him fuck too.
I thought there were strong performances kind of throughout. I liked the possessed girl a lot.
Actually, most of the actors in this movie are quite strong.
That's especially crucial in a found footage movie where you don't have any of the sort of usual like dressing of a Hollywood or Turkish equivalent of a Hollywood production to kind of cut back and forth between cameras, though there is some of that in this movie.
There isn't that, which is
I have questions about.
You don't usually see that in a found footage movie,
But the performances in a film like this are especially crucial because like we're meant to see something that really happened, or that appears to really be happening, and we have to believe every step of the way in every single frame that this is natural, that this is happening organically. And I think, everyone does a really fine job of selling this concept.
Yeah.
Through the entire
It did
film.
feel like a real experience until we got to some of the over-the-top spooky effects, which seemed very kind of cheesy at times.
Yeah.
Too often movies in this genre think that they're going to skate by on whatever they think their scares are. They're doing found footage because they think it's cheap. They hire shitty actors because they're cheap, and they're like, oh yeah, we're going to get them with, whatever the fucking jump scare is. But this movie actually did cast good actors.
And it actually
and built some characters.
Yeah, it made an investment in the story and in the characters.
Mm-hmm.
And, I mean, just the fact that you have this kind of Mulder and Scully-esque dueling worldview going on throughout the whole movie automatically makes this movie more interesting than 75% of the movies on Netflix. The fact that they added character-based drama throughout as a backbone of the entire movie.
Let me ask you guys, did you guys ever doubt Farouk? Was there ever a question in your mind where you were like, oh, maybe Farouk is full of shit? Maybe he's going to turn out to be a total snake oil salesman.
I was pretty certain that he was involved in paranormal activity. I thought maybe we would get a 1920-esque twist.
I was wondering about that too. If maybe Farouk was, or actually, I guess this is spoilers since we're saying Farouk is not the villain, but he's not a villain.
Minor spoilers.
Turns out, he's for real. He's a good guy. He's a real exorcist. He knows what's up.
No, he seemed genuine from the get-go, and I never had any sign otherwise. I felt like the main sort of the crux of the drama was between him and Ibra.
Yeah,
Am I saying that right? Ibru. For me, the drama seemed to stem from that very just sort of crucial, like, sort of science versus faith argument.
Yeah.
But I never for once doubted that he wasn't clear in his mind about what he believes in and what he's doing.
I had doubts from time to time. I was like, is there going to be a twist with this? I was mostly invested in Farouk and believed him, but I did have a few doubts.
I didn't doubt the character, but I imagined that coming just based on my experience watching these kinds of movies. Something else I liked about this movie is, and I probably would have appreciated it more if I were more familiar with, Turkey or Islam or anything like that, is the way they kind of try to solve this problem. Like, this is very much a movie about two people trying to solve a problem How do we get this girl to not be possessed?
Right.
And it's like almost like Apollo 13 or something, where it's like, well, here's what we got, here's what we discovered. Let's
and Abreu in typical Scully fashion is convinced that she's just like having some sort of schizophrenic breakdown, to an absurdly late point in the movie.
Yeah, she needs to go to the hospital. She needs electroshock therapy.
Yeah.
And that's going to be the end of it. And this guy's no, look at this thing that has blood on it. This goes back to this ancient manuscript.
Yeah.
I need to do some chants for a minute. Yeah.
I mean, when we get to the house, the possessed girl's house, we meet some other characters. We meet Fatma, who does not want Farouk to be there. And is very pissed off that there are cameras and that any of this is going on. She's a huge asshole. She doesn't want him to be there.
Well, and then she's very protective, right? Like,
but she comes off weirdly.
She comes back irrationally upset
angry
about this.
Yeah. Just like bug-eyed.
She's a den mother. She's a Wolverine.
Pointing a finger. She seems a little crazy when she comes out. And then there's also the mom. I forget her name. She seems okay.
There's also, before they get to the house, there's this kind of sequence of events that reminds me of something like maybe like Dracula or something like that, where they get lost in the countryside.
Oh yeah, and they see oh my god,
they just kind of experience a montage of like uncanny things.
It's very folk horror.
Yeah,
and there's a moment where like isn't there like I watched this movie in 2 chunks. And the first was very early this week, so my memory isn't totally clear. But don't they come across like a shepherd, and then seconds later they're driving like a quarter mile away, and he's like on the off in a field, walking with a woman.
Yes,
yeah, very creepy stuff that never pays off in any meaningful way.
Oh no, it does.
Oh, it does.
Yeah.
Oh,
we go back to the shepherd. And we understand,
right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. The test showed that was a lie, Stephen. Our polygraph determined that was a lie.
I found it interesting that you did the little thing after you said.
Is that what a polygraph does?
I'm a tethered.
Oh. Okay.
Anyway,
so they get to the house. They sit down with the family. They talk. Blah blah blah. And then all of a sudden, he finds the possessed girl, whose name I forget, by means unknown. She's just standing in a building outside after she's been missing for a while.
She hasn't been missing, I don't think. I think she's been there, but she's been sick or something. I don't know. I think before we...
Just hanging around being weird?
Yeah, I don't think that part's really important.
But he runs outside. He's like, there's somebody here. And then he somehow finds her in one of the many cuts in this movie that are just how did we get from here to here? He's all of a sudden up in the upper floor of this brick building where she's standing in a white nightdress and just acting weird. And then Abreu's like, oh my God, I can't. Yeah, it's so good to see you. You look so beautiful, blah, blah, blah.
Well, that's a natural problem that normally occurs in these found footage type movies, is that often the editing is sort of jarring. This film, it was around that point that it just kind of lost me for a while. I didn't really understand. I lost any sense of investment. I felt like it was just very sort of chaotic and random.
The editing in this was uniquely jarring to me, even for a found footage movie. There's a lot of stuff where it's just and I'm not the most technically inclined movie watcher. I'm more inclined towards the story and the narrative and the characters. Right. But this, I just kept noticing, that was a weird edit. How did we get from here to here? It just really called attention to itself, even for me as someone who doesn't watch that stuff as closely or isn't as attuned to that stuff.
I don't think I'm attuned to the technical elements of a movie. I don't think that gave me any special insight into this movie. I just thought that it was put together obnoxiously, and this is the only found footage movie I've ever seen that actually made me want Dramamine. They really do not hold back with shaking and swirling the camera.
It's fucking intense. There's so many added effects to it as well. The camera's not just shaking, but there are all these digital effects to make things look like they're sort of trembling and rumbling, and there's shadow play and stuff. It's wild, and it did make me feel kind of ill.
The wild part is that our protagonist shows up and has several cameras and insists on setting them up in every corner of the room that they are in. So we get at times something that's almost like a conventionally shot film it's just quote unquote found footage because you have a wide shot, you have a close up, and they cut between them like you would in
issue with that.
Conventional film. Well, it made me wish that they had just tried to shoot it like a conventional film.
Yes.
And again, this goes back to the whole found footage thing where it's like the expectations for found footage are low enough where it's acceptable to have a movie that looks like this as long as it's found footage. I say, if it's acceptable to have a movie that looks like this that's found footage, it's acceptable to have a movie that looks like this that's traditionally shot.
I agree.
I would rather just watch the same budget and them just shooting it as best they can.
So I'm going to have to wait for the spoiler room, but I did have a problem with the multiple camera angle thing. As a film goer watching this movie, didn't really make sense to me how that was possible, given the sort of like frame story that this movie fits within.
Well, it's almost painstaking how they show her setting up cameras.
Oh yeah, they draw attention to
points just to be like, hey, you know what? There is a camera here. Fuck you, asshole. We do have multiple camera angles on this, and there's a narrative, like in-story reason for these angles, but it still doesn't always make sense.
Some of it is like she's like trying to figure out the magician's tricks, right?
Yeah.
So like that makes sense. But as far as how it all fits together in a narrative sense, like logic goes out the window there. It makes no sense.
Another thing that bugged me as far as all that is concerned is I think it might just be a single shot inside the car where they superimpose the little like
recording
icon with the little red dot. I don't think you see that in any other shot in the movie, and it's like, this is not natural. You only see that when you're looking through a camera. It's never in the finished video of anything. Like, why?
They just want you to know that it's a diegetic camera angle.
As if it wasn't apparent otherwise, because we've been watching a fucking found footage.
That's the thing. It's like they're so afraid. They want so badly to shoot this conventionally, but they want the leeway for it to look like shit. So they have to remind you every 5 seconds.
That particular shot?
Yeah, they have to remind you every 5 seconds.
I never thought about it. Like, I remember that shot, but now that I think back on it, I think I was just so like zoned out at that point.
It's in the car.
I didn't have the energy to be outraged.
Every time they're in the car, actually.
Oh,
every time?
Yeah, I think so. It comes back multiple times.
Which
I don't think so.
Which implies another camera looking through the viewfinder of the camera she's using the entire time.
There's layers to this, baby.
There might be a djinn involved.
This is the real 13 cameras.
And have we even talked about Jinn? Fuck yeah!
She's
possessed by a djinn.
This whole movie's about gin and not the kind that we're drinking.
That Patrick's drinking.
Yeah, DJINN, the gin, baby.
Toby Hooper's final film. Gin.
Is it?
I've never seen it, but
this is one of those things, and also I'm going to bring the evil eye into this because when they get to the house, our man Farouk is like, much like Abraham Van Helsing does with the garlic in Bram Stoker's Dracula. Mm-hmm. He says, "Well, I'll tell you what your problem is. You got too many fucking evil eyes.
There's so many evil eyes." And you know what? When I saw them, I didn't realize I've seen those like in my life recently and didn't know what they were.
Okay. Well,
and it kind of freaked me out.
They have these medallions, I think,
to
as protection from the evil eye, hanging around the house. And he's like,
like
all right,
these like glass blown things, blue and white and black.
We're gonna get rid of those. He takes them all off the walls, throws them on a bed.
And the possessed girl has one on her, and she somehow has the wherewithal to surrender her evil eye, which baffled me.
Well, she goes in and out of lucidity throughout the movie, but the evil eye I am aware of because I had a book called The Very Scary Almanac. Which is where I get 90% of my that's where I got like the backbone, like everything that I accept as true about like the Men in Black comes from that book, and poltergeists come from that book. I loaned the book to a kid in 3rd grade, and then he lost it and he never gave it back, so I went about 20 years without the book until just recently, a few years ago, I bought another copy of it online.
I thought you were gonna say he came back into your life and returned it to you.
I just was walking through the cemetery and I found one halfway in the earth. No,
he's gonna come back as a poltergeist and return it to you.
But it had a little snippet about the evil eye and how to ward off the evil eye, and you do it by putting your thumb through your index and between your index and middle fingers. Yeah, like that. This is but you have to do it immediately when you catch the evil eye.
Oh, I got it. Okay. Yeah, we should probably post a photo of that on Instagram just in case our listeners might need it.
Yeah.
Good idea.
But as a kid, reading this, I was convinced that like the evil eye is like something to watch out for. And really, it doesn't really have a foothold in American culture, if not Western culture. Like, you never hear about the evil eye. But then they mention it in this movie, and so I looked it up, and yeah, the evil eye is fucking huge overseas. And especially, like, you know, in the Mideast and Africa.
So in my upbringing, the evil eye was just like the look you give someone. Just like shooting someone a dirty look.
It's
my
like the
parents
stink
were always
eye.
like, yes,
It's actually a
she's
curse.
giving you the evil eye. Steven's giving me the evil eye right now.
Right.
Fuck.
But the actual evil eye will curse you. And so I bring this up because jinn are much the same way. They don't really have a foothold in our culture, but jinn are like, holy shit. Like, if you grew up in Asia, you thought about jinn as much as we think about ghosts or anything else.
Or vodka.
Yeah, yeah. As much as you think about vodka.
It's like an evil genie. It's
Yeah.
like Jafar at the end of Aladdin.
Do we have like
No,
like
well,
a
that's a
cultural
different thing.
equivalent to the jinn?
There's a jinn there's a jinn that is just a genie. And then there's jinn with a D, which I think are more akin to demons. Yeah.
Anyways, that's what's got a fucking hold of. What's her name?
I just looked it up. Her name's Kubra. But yes, Kubra is ridden with a jinn.
Yeah. And he takes down all the evil eyes because evil eyes actually attract
I don't know. I don't
Something
care.
like that.
I don't
that
care.
was my.
But that's why, like, just like 1920, where Jay comes in and he's like, you know what? We want to attract the demon. We gotta get some meat.
Well, he's like, all right, you've been trying,
right.
you've been doing your family ritual, whatever. It's wrong. You're actually making it worse. Let's get rid of all this shit. We'll start over from scratch.
Yeah.
And
go up to the mirror room. There's a room where there's just a big mirror, and actually they get a pretty fucking dope shot where Farouk is just like crisscross applesauce in front of this mirror, and you can see like a million Farouks in the mirror.
Yeah, Doctor Strange eats
it's
your
a
heart
really
out.
cool shot. Yeah, he's got this little like fire in front of
He's sitting
candle or something.
in the corner with two mirrors at an angle, and it makes the illusion of, like, you know, endless circle of mirrors. Amazing.
Yeah.
Various rituals ensue.
That doesn't go well.
No, you know, this movie, I was dead tired when I started watching it, and I was
Oh
like,
man, I'm so sorry for you.
and at first I was like, this is going to be great. I'm just going to like get deliriously tired and settle into like the world that this movie creates. And
I
just
tried the same thing actually. I did
Yeah.
fall asleep too soon.
get totally unnerved. But the first hour of this movie is pretty damn boring.
That was my favorite part.
Oh, really?
Settling into this world, I was like, this is actually like pretty well shot, like for a found footage thing. Like, I'm very interested. After that, it just becomes like a fucking histrionic mess for me.
I would say this movie was like a roller coaster for me. It started really dull. I didn't like the first exorcism, as I mentioned. Then I got fairly invested in Ebru and Farouk. Then there's just kind of some dumb shit. Like, too often when the djinn shows up and starts doing shit, the camera's just shaking and there's loud sound effects, and that's supposed to be a substitute for scariness, and it didn't work for me at all. And then interspersed in there's a couple scenes that are genuinely fucking unsettling, which we'll probably get to momentarily. And the ending is upsetting. We'll get to that as well, but also unsatisfying.
Sounds
to
like
me.
we're about ready to review it, and then we'll head to the spoiler room and talk about some of the plot parts that really excited us or didn't. But one thing that I thought was very interesting, having watched 2 foreign exorcism movies now, is the difference in approach between how American exorcism movies handle possession and the 2 movies we've seen, which is, without getting too far into spoilers on this movie, in the foreign films, possession, demons have a earthly connection.
Yeah.
It's connected to human motives and human conspiracy. In our movies, people get possessed and it just happens.
It's random.
You lived in the wrong house.
It always involves some form of Christianity, and it's just like, it just happens. You just happen to be, there's evil out there, and it just randomly chooses a vessel, and like anyone who believes or doesn't believe could become the victim.
It's
right?
interesting, and I don't know what that means about our cultures psychologically. If
I think our
anything.
culture is less interesting than many others,
Yeah.
to be frank.
But it's like, yeah, a little girl gets possessed by a demon in the American movie, and it's like, oh, well, sucks to be you. Wrong place, wrong time. Could happen to anybody. In these movies, there's a whole spirit world, and that spirit world can be accessed by people with nefarious motives.
I was fascinated by the visual difference in how the possession was displayed. You know, that Farouk throws a cloth over people to exorcise them because the jinns don't do well in the dark or something like that. And then, like, the person will basically vomit out the jinn in physical form, and it usually looks like just a bloody, like, cut-off braid. It just looks like a big clump of hair, like, covered in blood.
What's some meat?
Sometimes there's, like, teeth in there.
Yeah.
It's gross.
Gross stuff.
And it's not something I've ever seen. That was fascinating.
Something gross on the inside.
Yeah. That was fascinating.
Something that is, like, too large to imagine, like, fitting through your esophagus to be able to vomit out.
Yeah.
Just slightly too big for that to be physically possible, which is creepy.
Well, and plus no one wants to vomit up a fucking braid in the first place of hair.
Oh, I got one sitting down there that I've been dying to get out. Been eating my cat's hairball treats lately, just trying to exercise this thing. It's not happening. Yeah.
There's probably some very smart point to make about, you know, why possessions are portrayed in more tangible, physical manifestations. I don't know. I don't know what I'm talking about. I got coffee brain. Let's review this movie. Patrick, you pretty much already reviewed it. Would you view it, cue it, or screw it?
Did I?
Kinda.
I don't know. I want to pass it to Steven.
Screw it.
Wow.
I like these detours in our journey, but I've been, you know, sort of disappointed so many times that I don't get too excited. But I happen to be in the right mood when I threw on the first half of this film, and regretted that I did fall asleep during it because it was very late at night. I initially enjoyed it, particularly some of the way it plays with found footage and makes it feel a little bit more visceral, a little bit more like you're in the room and the possession is affecting the camera and by proxy you. And that becomes kind of exhausting and frankly nauseating after a while. I can tell you the beginning, middle, and end of this movie, but the plot beats, the sort of unfolding mystery are like totally inscrutable and seemingly random, very hard to follow. So I would not recommend watching this motion picture.
I'll review it.
Yeah.
I did not find it hard to follow, actually. I found the plot, I mean, a bit convoluted for sure, but I understood what was going on. I will give it a cue it. It's interesting. It's by not even close to a perfect film, but it's very interesting culturally. A different take on the possession film from what we're used to, and I enjoyed that. And there's some genuinely memorable and unsettling moments in here, and I did enjoy the performances and the fact that they take some time to create characters that feel real and that were actually interesting to me, especially for a 2-hour and 15-minute found footage movie, which I did in Steven fashion watch in 2 parts. I didn't watch it all in one sitting. I watched it in 2 sittings. I was surprised at the level to which it did entertain me and draw me in. So I'll say cue it. Chris?
I'm going to say screw it.
Wow.
I liked what this movie was trying to do. It did a lot of things right. I think people who are especially interested in possession movies should watch it. Anyone who's interested in, kind of getting immersed into a different culture and kind of seeing a Turkish take on a possession movie, or a possession movie that's set in against the backdrop of Islam might be interested in watching this movie. But at the end of the day, like Steven said, the plot made sense to me, but beat by beat, it was just kind of meandering and frustrating and tedious and boring. And then just the whole aesthetic of the found footage was too much for me. I thought all the spooky effects were overdone and obnoxious. And it's not a good experience. It has some great moments, especially later on in the movie, which we'll get to. Some very entertaining scenes, some good twists, all the things I said I liked. But, I think that will give you... I think what we've said will give you an honest idea of whether or not you want to watch this movie. I would not want to... I'm glad I watched it. I would not want to watch it again. So, screw it. All right. Well, that's how we felt about it. Come on down to the spoiler room. And in just a few minutes, we'll be telling you, all the juicy, slimy, hairy, bloody parts of this movie. And there's many of them.
Oh, yeah.
So go check out the movie or come on down. See you soon. Welcome back. We are back in the spoiler room, ready to spoil the shit out of Dabbe. And, you know, something that I appreciate about this, I'd be interested in getting the take of a Turkish person on The Exorcist or something like that. Because the possession films the rituals involved in an exorcism seem so arbitrary to the uninitiated.
I will say, I texted Patrick about this last night, like the Turkish audiences love this movie. It seemed to be a high point in the series.
Yeah, you know,
lavish praise.
I saw an article, I forget what it was, in some, I don't know that it was a Turkish publication necessarily, but it was a publication that had more of a perspective on Turkish politics and issues than American publications do. And there was something special about this movie being released in the summer. Like the director, it was a big stand for him to release this movie in the summer. He was like, in Turkey, Turkish movies are not released in the summer, and I don't know what that means. If usually like American blockbusters come out in the summer, but apparently this came out in the summer in Turkey, and it was successful, and that was a big deal. Which
I mean,
I
said, I see there's a lot to like in this movie. My problem with this movie was generally in its form, and probably generally in the disconnect between me and the Turkish stuff that depicts.
Well, you know what? I want to talk about the toilet curse.
Yeah, we gotta talk about the toilet
Holy
curse. This was the point where the movie pivoted to me, and this is where I texted Patrick and said, "Oh shit, Dabbe, I'm screaming."
That's the moment. We were talking about this.
That is the moment.
I was wondering what was your moment, because you wouldn't tell me via text.
The first hour of this movie kind of put me into a stupor, and I was like, all right, what's going on here? I'm waiting for something to happen. And then this is where I started to get really excited.
How does it start? Like, is this in the mirror room? And then he's just like, we have to go to the toilet. Do you have a toilet?
He asked a very specific question. He's like, do you have a toilet that touches the ground and faces the east? And they're like, oh yeah, outside.
And this is a thing
in
where
the courtyard.
And this is a thing where, you know, it's funny to us because we're Westerners and toilets are funny in our culture. But there was something very funny about this moment where he's just like very serious, like, where's the toilet?
I wish we had Allison here, Allison with an I, Q, as we call her, to talk about real estate in Turkey. Because, like, is that a thing you look for when you're buying a house in Turkey? Like an outdoor toilet that faces east?
But did you guys not find it funny when he was just like in the middle of an exorcism and is like, do you have a toilet?
You know what? This could have been a Hitchcock moment, though. You know, like Psycho was the first movie to feature like a toilet that flushes. I wonder if, like in Turkey, this like broke ground or broke
perhaps
wind, or you know, whatever. Insert like lazy fart poop joke.
But sure enough, there's a fucking toilet in the backyard. It's an outhouse. It's like tiled, and it's not the sort of toilet we would imagine. It's just like sort of a depression, a little like what would you call that?
It's a depression. It's a little bowl sort of thing, like kind of like
in the ground that one would squat over.
Basin.
And Farouk goes out there and just starts hammering away at it with like a pickaxe or a sledgehammer or something. And he starts.
Cue one of the most memorable scenes from any movie on Netflix that we've seen so far.
And from underneath the ruins of this toilet starts pulling out meat, intestines.
And when he starts pulling out meat, everyone else starts like batshit wailing.
Their shit.
They are horrified.
I mean, rightfully so. I would probably lose my mind too.
Yeah.
And again, maybe this makes more sense if you're in Turkey. Maybe this is actually something you're familiar with, a superstition you're familiar with. But they're just losing their fucking minds.
And it goes on at length. He pulls out so much fucking
He pulls out
entrails.
Everything.
He pulls out.
It gets more ridiculous as it goes along.
He pulls out either cow or horse's head. I'm not sure what it is.
That's one of the last things he pulls out.
It's like just glistening cow flesh with like the eyeballs poking out. It's like the horse's head in Godfather, except it's even more gruesome. It's horrifying and so memorable. It's like the fucking horror equivalent of Mary Poppins' carpet bag.
Yes, that's exactly right.
He just keeps pulling out more fucking gruesome shit.
It wasn't horrifying to me at all. It was just sensational. And he's just going back, reaching in, pulling it, and everyone's freaking the fuck out. And you're like, oh, that's a bad omen. Then he just goes back and he gets more stuff. And then he goes back and he gets more stuff. We should just rip this scene and put it on our Facebook.
Can we talk about like famous horror toilets?
It is.
No.
I would go so far as to call this scene operatic.
Operatic. This is an operatic scene. And He's got everything. He's got entrails. He's got like clumps of hair. He's got like dead rats. He's got a goddamn
Are there dead rats?
Skinned horse's head. He's got voodoo dolls he pulls out of the fucking toilet.
Holy
He's
fuck.
got like dolls. He might as well pull out a rocking horse the way this was going.
And
like,
everyone is just, I mean, this is the
it's
outstanding
like the
thing
12
to me.
days of Christmas.
Is the women are all standing around just screaming and losing their shit, and none of them like leave. None of them are just like, fuck this shit, I'm out of here. They all just hang around and are like, what is he going to pull out
Constant
next?
screaming.
And the screaming gets elevated even more. In my mind, this scene goes on for like 10 minutes.
It's like
And it's amazing.
It's like-
I never got bored.
like Oprah's audience when she's like, we're sending you all home with a book, and everyone just starts screaming, oh, and a ticket on this flight, oh, and everyone starts screaming, and a car.
We're sending you home with a bloody chicken breast, and you home with some intestines, and you home with a skinned horse's head.
Oh my god, everyone's
like a pinata from
screaming.
hell.
And Farouk, of course, as he is this entire movie, is
Stoic.
dead serious. This is the most serious moment of Farouk's life, just
Yes.
pulling all this shit out from underneath some toilet in the backyard.
No, it's not shit. Like, I wish it were shit. It would be less horrifying. Probably.
What a scene.
One of the best scenes we've seen in this journey.
And so now I'm like, okay, we're going there. Now, I'm ready to see some more crazy shit.
Yeah. Steven, you wanted to talk about toilets?
Yeah, you don't seem very excited about this scene.
He wants to talk
You're
about other
quiet over
toilets.
there. Why do you want to talk about other toilets when we've seen the best toilet in film history?
I don't know if it's the best.
Well,
But
first of all, how did you
Top
feel about
5.
this scene?
Oh, it was fucking wild. Like, I've never seen anything like it. I don't know. It just like it made me think of like other like my like kind of terrifying relationship with toilet.
Okay.
Do tell.
I might have brought this up in the show before, but when I was a kid and my family used to watch the X-Files on Friday nights.
Oh, I know what you're about to say.
And like it was the only time where we would turn all the lights off in the house.
Oh, yeah.
And I was terrified to go to the bathroom during the commercial breaks alone, but I did it. You know, I was like, I'm not asking for help. I'm gonna.
Was it
make
because of the dark, or you were afraid of an X-Files monster coming up the drain?
Well, both. It was the dark, and then it was like the fumbling for the light switch, like, and like shut the door. And then I thought like E.T. was either going to come out from the basin of the toilet or from the vent next to the toilet
E.T.
every
of
fucking
all of
time.
them.
I was terrified of E.T.
there are more than 2 X-Files monsters that get you on the toilet.
Well,
Well-
but they're specifically the one who lives in the outhouse outside, which I will never forget, the glowing eyes looking up from the bottom of the outhouse.
Yeah.
What creature is that?
That's
Do you
the
remember?
Fluke Man.
That's the Fluke Man?
That's the Fluke Man. He escapes into a porta potty,
Really?
and then the Eugene Toombs comes up the toilet once, and then there's in the 7th season, I think, Aguamala. There's the water monster who can get you. Yeah.
All kinds of shit birds on the
You
X-Files.
got an X-Files question. I'm your man.
Well, it made me think of I don't know if it's Ghoulies or Ghoulies 2, but I remember the box art when I was a kid, and it's like these like, you know, kind of ghoulish looking sort of gremlins, sort of rip off creatures, and they're coming out of a toilet, and the tagline is "They'll get you in the end."
Funny. I don't know. Toilet humor is just not my bag.
It's not my bag, but as a kid, it wasn't humor. It was like, well, they're gonna
That's a
fucking
threat.
get me
Yeah.
in the end, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And then the third thing I thought about in this scene is I used to be a big Ghostbusters fan as a kid, and I had all the toys, and I had like the Ghostbusters like fire station thing, and there was this toy that you could get that was like a demonic toilet that you could place in there, and it had like a face. It was sort of like if Cherry from Pee-wee's Playhouse was evil and also a toilet. That's what it was.
Damn.
Essentially, like Egon got in the end.
Speaking of things that are vaguely threatening that would terrify me if I were still a child, I saw something at the fair because like I said, I was at the county fair. There's a tree.
Brag.
There was a tree on a fair. There's a sign on a tree.
Weird flex, bro.
There's this tree, and the tree had a sign attached to it, and the sign said, "Please do not peel my bark off. My bark is important to me. like your skin is to you.
It was like you sound like Treebeard for a moment, and then tables are turned.
Horror. Anyway, so yeah, and all this to produce a scroll at the end of this toilet scene, and the scroll establishes a wealth of exposition.
A conspiracy.
They're like, oh, wow.
She's not merely possessed by a djinn, but someone has created this scroll to possess her on her, what is it, 23rd birthday.
23rd birthday. Now, talk about some fucking patience. Because someone put a curse on this family where the father of Kubra was killed. He was cursed and that was killed by the curse, essentially. And Kubra was born cursed, but the curse doesn't set in until she turns 23. So, patient ass curse person drafted this memo.
Speaking of X-Files, can you imagine an X-Files cold open that just involves the toilet meat scene, and then you roll out the scroll at the end, and then
I can make that happen. I'm gonna rip it and put that on it and put it on Facebook.
Yes.
Oh man,
where does it fucking go from there?
So, then we start teasing out some of the more interesting ideas in this movie, where our man Farouk sits down with our protagonist. What's her name?
Ebru.
And he explains how he interprets the Dabbe. Now, we all looked up the Dabbe.
This is the main spoiler of the movie. What the fuck is Dabbe?
Well, the Dabbe in general is an apocalyptic demon.
In the Quran.
Yes, or in some sort of... Is it in the Quran? Are we sure?
It is in the Quran
so.
for sure. Yeah, it is. According to Wikipedia.
Okay.
So we might fuck ourselves there, but it's fine.
And according to this film, it's this sort of web described in the Quran that's going to sort of envelop the world as one of the signs of the apocalypse. And according to Farouk, his interpretation of it is that's the internet.
Yes, it's going to surround the world with a web, and it's going to enter every home.
Yeah.
And Farouk is like, doesn't that sound like the internet to you? The World Wide Web. And then there's the scene where Abru is like, in English, basically, she says, www, World Wide Web.
Oh my God. I definitely wish I weren't tuned out for this scene because that is fucking bananas.
Oh, no, this is great. I can't believe you're tuned out. Let me explain the genius of this. The premise of this movie.
I was not tuned out, but I'm looking forward to you explaining the genius of it.
Genius of it?
No. So the genius is Farouk is concerned because he's like the most dangerous curses in history
are on the dark web.
Not on the dark web, but just online. Anyone can just find these curses and how to perform them.
Oh, I like this actually.
And that's kind of the premise of this movie. And it kind of is the key to everything that happens afterwards.
Okay.
So basically, Farouk is the old school magic man, and he is upset that basically any random person with a grudge can cast a extremely powerful, dangerous curse.
As they should be able to, right?
Oh, you believe
I'm all open source here.
Yeah, you
open source curses.
You want to take back the djinn from the bourgeoisie.
He wants to reclaim the means of production.
So yeah, I thought that was a fascinating idea, and it's I would dare say that makes this film elevated horror.
The term we're
fact that the internet is the villain.
Sincerity.
I don't know. I feel like that concept is not. Okay, so I guess they got the curse from online. I just feel like that concept is not played out enough, especially to call this movie fucking Dabbe. But of course, it's part of a larger franchise, and presumably the earlier installments had more to do with that concept. I wonder.
I think it's more of an anthology sort of thing, though.
I'm curious if
like a brand.
It's my anthology idea, dark memes.
But I'm curious if the earlier installments played out that theme more, and if they specifically played out that theme in the sense of the internet being the Dabbe.
Yeah. So the definition that I read on the venerable internet resource Wikipedia.
The venerable
resource of reliable
we gotta
information.
explain that, because you explained that to me after the show last time, but our listeners don't know what the fuck you're referencing.
Oh, when John Travolta said Adele Dazeem instead of Idina Menzel.
This is all a reference to John Travolta's introduction of Idina Menzel at the Oscars.
Talented
Adele Dazeem.
So now we turn everything
Which
into
came
that.
up, as I texted Patrick last night, it came up in an episode of the most recent season of The Good Place.
Bless.
I was watching last night.
Wow, a hilarious moment in film history.
Anyway, the definition I saw was the beast of the world, and it was like when the beast appears, it's a sign of the last day. But I didn't read enough to clarify like what the beast is. I guess the beast could be something like a utility, like the internet.
Yeah, well, we have that, in Christianity and stuff too. The mark of the
course.
beast, all that stuff. And I am always fascinated when people kind of retrofit, biblical prophecies or any sort of thing like that with the modern world. Like,
is that retrofitting or future fitting?
Example, the barcode. Like in the 80s and 90s, people were saying that the barcode was the mark of the beast.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
And then people started saying...
Like just barcodes in general?
Yeah. And then people started saying that the Facebook like button, the like symbol, is the mark of the beast.
What? How am I so out of the loop on the discussion about the mark of the beast?
And I think that's fascinating.
Where do I get in on this?
Reddit.
And in general, I'm fascinated by the combination, as a genre trope, the combination of ancient mysticism and modern technology. I think that's fascinating. Like, I like a movie where scientists are doing something cutting edge and they, end up communicating with the spirit world or something like that. It was like the idea I had for an episode of Dark Memes where everyone's arguing over whether they hear Yanny or Laurel in the meme.
Oh God, I forgot about that.
And turns out it's a government experiment to find out whose brains are wired to what frequencies, and they're actually trying to get people to listen to these recordings that came from a crack deep in the earth and what they believe is hell, and they're trying to tap into fucking hell demon energy or some shit.
Dude, just invoking that debate makes me feel like I'm in hell.
Yeah. Well, you are.
But I mean, at some point he supposedly actually exorcises the demon from Kubra.
He thinks he kills her.
Yeah.
And I forget the demon's name. I want to say it was Sade.
Sorry. Oh, dude. I wish can we cue up some Sade? I love Sade.
Yeah, let's just listen to some Sade right now.
Demon's name is Sare. S-A-R-E.
Oh, sorry.
Hey, sorry.
So, yeah, he kills her, or so he thinks.
Yeah.
And she comes back, and that's the kind of thing where I got a little confused and lost. It doesn't really matter. What does matter is they soon go, they're like, oh, you want to find out what's going on? You got to go out to this town where the djinn killed everybody.
Qibla Dare Village.
Oh, wow, look at you, Johnny on the spot with that. How the fuck?
Ginny on the spot.
This man doesn't even have any notes. He's just dropping that shit. He's got a mind like a fucking razor.
Hey, you know what?
Steel trap.
My secret? I fucking pay attention.
Oh,
you might want to try it sometime.
So they go out there where the only inhabitant of the entire fucking town is the lonely shepherd
That we saw
earlier in the film. So it all comes back.
Teleporting shepherd.
And he gives our heroes the real deal. He's the exposition guy who shows up a half hour from the end of all these horror movies, and it's like, here's what you're actually dealing with. Revelations unfold. Turns out our scientist protagonist, Ibru, her dad was involved with Kubra's father, and the two of them made a deal with some djinn to find some treasure, because there's some djinn who are specialized in treasure recovery. And basically, I think they...
you got your treasure recovery djinns, you got your bail bonds djinns.
You got your toilet cleaning djinns.
you got everything. And then so this whole scene plays out and sets up the whole backstory. Long story short, I think they cursed the town basically because they gave tainted money to all the villagers, and all the babies had birth defects.
Well,
terrifying birth defects.
Here's what they did. The two men, the father's uncle, whatever the fuck, worked with the djinns to get treasure and then fucked the djinns over. They tried to bury the djinn after they took advantage. After they took advantage of the djinn to get treasure.
Well, actually, they thought they killed the djinn.
Yeah,
that becomes a whole other spoiler, which we don't really need to talk about because
I want to see a djinn in this movie. By the way, The whole time I was like, show me a fucking djinn. I don't want to see a djinn like in a person.
You see shadows and stuff. Well, that's the point. They're demons. Who knows? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't want to see one. It would just be a shitty CGI thing.
We're skipping over like the fucking freaky possessed horse, which was hilarious.
Oh yeah. No, that actually freaked me out a little bit.
I already forgot the horse.
High entertainment. Like they added the same post effect blur motion to like a horse. I'm like, hell yeah! Now you're cooking with gas. But then this shepherd, after he drops all this truth, he's like, oh, and by the way, my wife is a djinn. And then people are like, what?
Oh, right. Yeah, you can't see her, but she's here.
Yeah. This guy's just married to a djinn, and cue this gratuitous scene where all of a sudden the house gets haunted and they're trying to apologize to the wife djinn, and he's like, she doesn't want you here anymore, leave.
It is wild.
Amazing.
And it's intercut.
It's a weird fucking movie.
I think at this point it is now intercut with, at home, Ebru has sort of inexplicably been left at home. She and Farouk have this close bond at this point in the movie. She is recognized.
No, that's not. It's not intercut there.
No,
they make it. They leave together, and that's when their car is covered with bloody hands and everything like that.
Oh, right.
They part ways because they return to the house, and then our hero Farouk digs up the djinn because he wants to give her a proper burial. So he digs up what's basically an urn.
Oh yeah,
holding a spirit, and he tries to give her a proper burial in the cave where all the djinn hang out.
Which is the way to properly sort of
there's rules,
placate the spirit and sort of close this loop.
Yeah. Then he returns home, and the mother of Kubra comes in the room, hysterical, and says, oh, you have to go to the back to the shepherd's house. He just called. It's an emergency. And Ebru has other business because Kubra's freaking out. I don't know. They part ways.
Because we think it's over. Ebru and Farouk have this moment where she's like, you were right. They kind of they're about to embrace, I think. And then the mom bursts into the room and is like, the shepherd just called. You gotta go.
Farouk goes back to the shepherd's house, and the shepherd is covered in blood, pounding on the door, and he's like, what the fuck are you doing here? You gotta be with Ebru. And he's like, well, didn't you call me? He's like, no, I didn't fucking call you.
Well, it's sort of inexplicable at this point why Ebru wouldn't just go with him, because they have such a close bond.
Again, this is where the beat by beat gets real convoluted for me. I can't keep track of how all these reveals come out, but the important thing is that Kubra's whole family is basically in on a conspiracy to transfer the djinn to Ebru.
Yeah. Yeah, they beat the shit out of her while Farouk is gone.
And Farouk realizes that the djinn he thought was dead and giving a proper burial was actually still alive, buried alive, and that he just buried a living djinn or something, which is the thing you absolutely don't want to do because it intensifies the curse. There's a scene where he's burying a dead djinn, good. Burying a living djinn intensifies the curse. Oh no. And so then they return and they just get jumped by Kubra's family. Farouk gets thrown down a fucking well.
Oh, that's horrifying.
And pelted with boulders in another very memorable scene.
And that's actually a good use of the shitty found footage camera. Yeah. The camera is at the bottom of the well with him, looking up these tiny figures
very claustrophobic
of the mom and her daughter above, just dropping rocks, and you see them hitting his face. And of course it's staged. The rocks are not anything dangerous. They're probably fucking styrofoam. It feels
real,
but it feels very real.
It feels incredibly real.
Oh, this is.
I mean, they actually put him down
awful.
a fucking well.
Yeah.
Oh
yeah, he's down a well in real life.
He's down a fucking
deep well.
Deep well. Deep, horrifying. Yeah. Who the fuck would want to get down? And I can just see him. I'm like, that's how you find bones in the bottom of a well. That's what happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
By shooting a found footage horror movie.
And then Ebru gets buried alive, and they're like, yep, basically you're fucked, and the djinn's gonna take you because better you than our daughter.
Which is also a horrifying scene, and god damn it, all the cameras in this movie. She puts on a hidden camera.
There's at least 13 cameras in this movie.
Yeah, we should call Neville and ask him about this. Yeah. There's a hidden camera in Ebru's bra, so there's a shot looking up out of the grave that her mother... No, not her mother. Kubra's mother has dug for her. And at some point she also pulls out her phone to shoot the inside of her coffin when she's buried alive. That was some harrowing
Being
shit,
buried
you guys.
alive used to be my biggest fear as a child, and again, something I read in the Very Scary Almanac.
I feel like this movie reawakened my fear of being buried alive because that is a prolonged scene of her in that coffin, just screaming, hyperventilating,
Fucking
trying
snake
to
just
film.
snapping
It
at
goes
her.
There's
on-
a snake that
Yeah,
shows
it
up.
goes on.
That was the worst part of it for me, is like being trapped in that space with a fucking like rattlesnake, whatever the hell
Oh,
it
it
is.
was a big ass snake.
I like snakes.
I don't know what
so
that
I
was-
like
that wasn't
snakes,
as bad
but I mean
for
the
me.
fact that she's holding his neck and it's like very seemingly realistically like snapping at her.
Yeah.
Great sound effects.
Yeah.
Like, oh god, that snake's it's not cuddly.
The scene goes on so long that you think she's gonna
Get out.
get out. It's not gonna be the end of the movie, but that's the end of the movie.
Yeah, exactly.
There's a big snake in there,
and then there's an epilogue where
and
it
then
turns out
there's
it's a true story.
Then there's a title card where it's like, "Oh, Farouk got out."
It's
So
like
they're
American Graffiti. It like explains what happens to everyone at the end
Yeah.
of the
But the
movie.
most perplexing part of it is after we just see one of the most memorable murders of a character I've ever seen in film. When Farouk's at the bottom of the well, the title card
That's
comes
one of the
out.
most memorable murders you've ever seen.
Yes. And then maybe because I just watched it today, but it
I mean, we didn't see him die.
we saw him get pelted with huge
Enough
rocks.
that he should have died, but he was still conscious.
I was like, oh, he's going to be buried alive at the bottom of this well, he's dead. I mean, don't split hairs with me on this.
No, he should have died. Those boulders were huge.
Yeah,
they were like four times the size of
reasonable
his
person
head.
would watch this scene and be like, wow, Farouk
His
just
head got
died.
fucking crushed.
Yeah, you see a rock land square on his head. I'm like, oh.
Turns out.
Wow. Turns out the first thing you see after the end of the movie is a title card that's like, well, in case you were wondering, Farouk got found by villagers and he's fine. So maybe sequel set up. I don't know.
Well, we know there are sequels. I don't think they deal with these characters anymore.
No,
though.
I think it's an anthology.
I
sort
want to
of thing.
see Farouk v. Jay, Dawn of Mantras.
Okay, I want to back up for the briefest second to just mention I really liked the shot where you see the bloody handprints cover the windshield of
that
the
was
car
cool. Yeah.
from inside.
Yeah, it's like a stop motion effect. or
Yeah,
something.
and great
Where
practical
it becomes
effect.
completely covered in blood to the point that it's opaque.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then
That was
later
cool.
when they're coming back to the car, there are sort of bloody handprints leading up to it, and Abreu has like a full-blown freak
There are
out.
a couple of cool effects, or like there are a couple of cool like directorial choices in this film.
I mean, listen, guys.
Few and far between.
Screw it if you must, but this is still, I think you would have to agree, a cut above the vast majority of found footage films.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, but screw them all.
There's a lot going on here.
There are a
Again,
few good ones.
I could praise this movie all day. That's what I'm mostly interested in doing. Lots of fun ideas. And, it's kind of it's kind of like a kitchen sink kind of thing. There's so many different, like, oh, yeah, there's bloody handprints all over the car. Why not? Yeah, there's a creepy tree with intestines hanging off the branches and, like, a crazy, like, rune made out of rocks at the base of the tree. Like, that's all great stuff. And that's stuff that you don't really see often, and it's
Just
creepy.
not a great story.
The story I thought was fine too. I mean, the story has twists
Not well
and turns.
We also didn't mention that there's like the number 7175, which ends up
Oh.
meaning something
You know
about
what?
like a whole like cult to do with like the resurrection of Christ.
Yes.
That was
Yeah.
a mind blower.
That was very
It's
interesting.
wild. Yeah.
And I mean, this is the first movie I've seen that in,
like 7175 means vivo, which means Christ is alive.
This is the first movie.
And that's a
I've
very
seen.
brief segment of the film, too. Like, it just comes and goes. You're like, wait, what?
And it's supposed
There are
to be
people who
like
believe Christ is alive and never... What?
and it's kind of like supposed to be a pivotal detail of the film.
I didn't even think it was supposed
You
to be
could
as
cut that.
It was almost like they build it up, but like...
Yeah.
And
There's
then
so
they
many-
just drop it. Yeah.
Yeah, there's
you're
so
right.
many recurring appearances of the number 7175, and
To
finally
the point
it's
they go on like a
revealed that-
special quest to figure out
Yeah.
like who put these numbers here.
and finally it's revealed to be a code for the word vivo, which means that Christ is alive. That was
I thought
my
a
head is
fucking
still
albino
spinning.
assassin was about to show up.
Yes.
That was some.
Yeah, there's a lot of
some
weird shit in
shit.
here. I mean, does it all add up? I would say no. It's kind of a mess of a film, but with some really interesting, bold, creative choices throughout. No doubt about that.
My critique of this, my criticism of this movie is almost entirely based on the method rather than what this movie attempted to do or what was on the page.
It could have used another draft of the screenplay, a little bit of refinement, and yeah, it shouldn't have been a found footage movie.
Yeah.
I guess the idea with it being a found footage movie is like, oh, like there have been all these weird like birth defects in this town, and we found this video that seems to make sense of it. That came from like this year.
Yeah.
And it was found in a
Look,
I mean, I don't even want to get into it because the answers aren't there.
this is going to be a great film. I can't wait for James Wan to convert to Islam and spend $100 million remaking this. It's going to be great.
All right. Whatever you say.
I'd be curious to see that. Well, I feel like we're kind of nearing the end of the journey with Dabbe here, right?
Yeah, you have anything else you want to dab about it?
I've gobbed and I've daubed enough.
I have one thing to say, not two.
Okay.
I have one thing to say because I realized that I forgot one when we were talking about reactions to The Perfection from social media earlier this episode.
I can't go back to The Perfection.
I've got one more for
I
you.
fucking closed the book on that.
Just wait.
God.
Wait. This is from Instagram. I'm not going to identify the user. She may not want to be identified, but she says, this is for you, Chris. She says, I feel Chris's mud story on a deep level.
Oh.
A deep level.
All right.
Very deep.
Deep in the intestines, perhaps.
We're talking diaphragm level.
That's where I keep all the rancid, hairy, bloody meat chunks and the voodoo dolls and the horse head.
I just wanted you to know that someone relates to your harrowing episode. All right. So what are we watching next week, Chris?
Well, we got some big news for all our listeners.
Gasp.
We're ending the show. No, we're not ending the show, but we do have big news. The format, we're going to try something new. The alphabetical order journey has been a ton of fun, but in the interest of, maybe having some more interesting and lively discussions, we are going to start rotating around, and each week one of us is just going to pick the next movie, just like we do at the Wheel of Death, but there's not going to be a wheel. We're just going to take turns.
It's all Wheel of Death all the time.
All
but no wheel.
And it's always going to land on us 1/3 of the time, which is an improvement.
So it's gonna go. Chris is going to pick a movie. Patrick's going to pick a movie. Steve's going to pick a movie. And then every fourth episode, we're going to pick a totally fucking random movie.
We're going to use the
No,
wheel
we're
of
not
death.
going to the wheel.
The Wheel of Death is coming
The
back.
wheel is now
The Wheel of Death.
The wheel is now a co-host.
We're not rid of it. It's staying around.
Wonder what it has to
Continues
say.
to troll
Dude,
us.
I didn't build that fucking wheel to only use it on a handful of episodes, all right?
Yeah. We got to get our use out of that
Spent
wheel.
too much time in fucking Home Depot to just abolish the wheel. So the wheel's coming back. So that's the gist of it. If you're a long-time listener, this is going to be something new. Maybe it'll be a great idea. I think it's going to be great. If not, too bad. We're probably gonna stick to this.
We're never changing. And Chris is going to pick the first movie.
Yeah.
And Steven and I are literally on the edge of our seats wondering what Chris is going to pick. Because he was looking at Netflix earlier today, and he did his Chris cackle at one point. He was just laughing his ass off. And I don't know if that's the movie he's about to announce.
That's not the movie I'm about to announce. I was laughing my ass off because there's a movie I'm not going to pick.
Oh.
That's called Ladda Land.
Oh.
Ladda Land, and it's a foreign film with like a demon on the thumbnail image, and I laugh every time I see it because it reminds me of La La Land,
A film you love.
a film I love. I always joke about Ryan Gosling
And film.
and Emma Stone in Ladda Land.
So what are you picking?
We don't want to jar our listeners too much, so for my first pick in our new format, I'm going to stick to the D's. Because we're in the D's for Dabbe.
Not the Dabbes.
Oh, shit. Is he going to just pick the next Dabbe movie?
Am I just going to be a dick and pick Dabbe 5? I want to, but no. We are going to watch a film called Dead Awake.
Oh, tell me about
Dead
it.
Awake.
And
What's
the
the description?
reason, I'm not going to read the description because I don't want to know. Actually, I have read this description before.
What appealed to you about it? Tell us that. Why did you decide to pick it?
The movie is described as, while investigating the death of her twin sister in her sleep, a social worker unwittingly opens the door to an evil supernatural entity. And the reason it caught my attention...
Is it Mr. Bedevil?
No. The reason it caught my attention is because it stars Jocelyn Donahue, who we know from The House of the Devil, which is one of my favorite recent horror
Is she
movies.
the star of House
She is
of the
the
Devil?
star.
Okay.
She is the star of House of the Devil, and
Okay.
she's the star of this movie.
Oh.
And so I saw her face on the thumbnail, and I was like, "That looks like House of the Devil." And I'm sure this movie's going to be nothing like House of the Devil, but you know,
Curious to find out.
Dead Awake is a good title.
Hell yeah.
And it's in the D's. So
I'm excited.
yeah,
All right.
that's what we're doing next time.
All right. Well,
Hope it's great. If not, you can blame me.
Hope it keeps me awake enough to watch it in one sitting.
hope it keeps you dead awake.
I could use. I need to be dead. I feel like I'm dead awake right now. I need to drink some more of this coffee, and hopefully I don't crash my car driving home and have to get lost in a fucking farm country and meet a shepherd who's fucking married to a djinn who fucking tells me to go dig up an urn from under a fucking tree with a bunch of fucking intestines hanging off of it and a bunch of rocks that spell out Jesus is actually still alive on a fucking book.
Holy fuck, you have had too much coffee.
Oh,
let
baby.
me take this moment to encourage everyone to follow us on social media. You know what? We loved hearing from you guys about the perfection. If you watched fucking Dabbe, tell us about it.
Yeah.
Did anybody watch Dabbe?
Did you watch the other Dabbes?
Did you see?
In
have you seen any
anticipation of
Dabbe?
this- Have you
Have
seen
you
the
seen
previous
Dabbe
films?
in Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets? Tell us what you thought
Listen,
about
Do
him.
you own an action figure of Dabbe?
These guys can play good cop. I'm going to play bad cop. Anyone out there who knows fucking anything about Dabbe?
You mean Dabbe? You have to pronounce that real carefully now.
Dabbe, you tell us what you fucking know. You tell us what you fucking know, or I'm going to send you up the river.
I'm gonna send you down to the well.
We're going to send you down the well and drop rocks on your head, but then a villager will find you and you're going to be okay.
We're at EHMON Cast on all the socials, I think, right?
Yep.
Yeah, you can troll us.
And that's where you go if you want to run the risk of having rocks dropped on your head down a well.
No, really, and unless we get like copyright complaint, I am gonna rip the scene where he's taking the chunks of meat out of the toilet, and we're gonna put that online because everyone needs to see it.
Oh, I thought. Oh,
it's
with
wild.
the X-Files theme at the end.
Maybe, maybe
The
not.
outdoor east-facing toilet.
I don't want to make fun of the outdoor east-facing toilet too much because I don't know what the cultural implications of that are. It seems like it's a
I'm
normal
not making
thing,
fun of it. I'm
but
just like, that's a novelty.
It is a novelty, and it reminded me of this.
I would love one myself.
It reminded me of the scene in 1920 where he's like, "Oh, do you have a hill where you can't see the moon?" And the guy's like, "Oh yes, No Moon Hill."
Wait, what is that from?
1920 London.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah,
With Jay.
with Jay.
All
All right, this has been the most like extended outro ever for the show.
I don't want to leave.
I do.
We're never leaving the spoiler room.
I don't
right.
want to get buried alive down here.
All right.
Yeah, rocks are actively
fucking
dropping
snake.
on us in the spoiler room
All
right
right.
now, so it's probably time to stop.
We are done. I'm going to try to conjure some gin tonight.
Yeah.
In more ways than one. I'm gonna have a gin tonic, and I'm gonna sit down in front of the mirror, and I'm gonna start. I'm gonna look up some curses online.
I've got some meat in the fridge. I got a horse's head. We can do
I
this.
got some meat in the fridge. Okay, that doesn't work. Sorry.
Horses in the fridge.
Okay. Well, that's it for this week. Check us out next time
For a whole new EHMON.
for a whole new aim. All new format change.
All new,
this is
all
gonna
different.
be like when the X-Files moved to Los Angeles. This is gonna be like
New Coke.
Let's hope it's not like Anti-Birth.
huh?
That does not fit into the metaphor stream right now.
I'm trying to think of
how
like-
I'm
is it
doing
like
my own
Anti-Birth?
thing. No, I'm saying let's hope it's not like Anti-Birth. I don't want to have the devil's baby. It's a new show, new year, new baby.
Yeah.
New show, new me.
Yeah. New show, new memes.
New memes. All right. Well, see you next week. For every horror movie on Netflix, as always, this has been Chris.
This has been Patrick.
And Steven, bye-bye.
See you later.
Bye.